welcome back to another grilling video, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm feeling really nostalgic. I have out my recipes from Mom book where she wrote these recipes, and one of them is just an absolute favorite. It's actually my mom's recipe for peach dumplings. It's kind of a Bohemian tradition, or at least that's the way I grew up understanding it. I have no idea if it really is. It's funny, if you search on YouTube for peach dumplings, you will find all kinds of cobblers and whatnot. I've never seen them like this. So let's kind of show you what it is. Really, really pretty simple. We're going to start with 3½ cups of flour. We're going to go with about a full tablespoon of salt. Now I know about how much this thing dispenses, so we'll just keep going. We're at about a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half, 2, 2½, and 3. We're also going to do a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. So I'll tell you, the peach dumplings sounds like a dessert. We actually always had this as a meal, and that's the way I enjoy doing it, as a meal. I think it's I don't know, it feels like the right way. So I'm just going to use a fork. I'm going to mix this up. Again, 3½ cups of flour, just an all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of salt, and a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. Now we've got a 1¼ cup of cold water and 2 eggs. Let's just get these guys cracked right in here. And then we're going to whisk and mix all this together before we incorporate it into our flour. It would certainly be easier to beat the eggs before you add the water in, otherwise you're chasing around a yolk making sure you break it. This part can get a little bit messy. I'm going to go ahead and pour all this in here. Now we're just going to go ahead and start stirring this with a spatula. It's just a nice way to get all this stuff right off the bottom, but pretty quickly I may end up having to use my hands here. Now this is a fairly wet dough, you know, not wet like a pancake batter, but definitely a stick all over your hands kind of wet. We just want to mix this until it's well incorporated. Make sure you scrape the bottom of this. You want to make sure all that flour on the bottom is incorporated in here. You definitely want your peaches to be nice and dry, so be sure that they're dry. Ideally, they should also be room temperature. If you had your peaches in the fridge, you want to definitely take them out, let them sit overnight so that they are a nice room temperature. Otherwise, it just takes significantly longer to cook them. Now, before I start forming my actual dumplings, we want to get everything ready. This is going to get all over your hands. It's going to be a little messy. You want to have a plate or a little tray, something to put all of the dumplings after they're formed on so that they're very easy to get to when you're starting to cook them. Speaking of cooking them, they will boil for 20 to 30 minutes until they're tender inside. So I have a large pot of water going on the side burner of the grill right now. That's how we cook them. Start with a little pile of this flour right in my hand. We definitely don't want it on my fingertips to stick real bad. And then just a big old scoop of this stuff. By the way, you might want to just divide your dough into 6 equal portions if you're afraid you're not going to portion them out right. We never do, because if we have a little bit of leftover dough, we like to just have dumplings that are dough only. All right, got this in here. Again, place our peach in it. My favorite way to do this is just sort of let it drape down the sides so you get it quite a ways down there. Then, with your hand nice and floured up, just come up to the top and pinch that shut. Then pat it around like a snowball or pack it like Play-Doh until you get that crack nice and sealed up. Alright, so we're just going to repeat this process again. Some flour in this hand, definitely on the fingertips and thumb for sure, because that's the hand the dough is going to go in. Just going to take that dough and drop it right in our hand. We want the sticky side to be up, so don't roll it around in your hand at this stage. Now we're going to take that peach, and here's what I mean. We just take that peach and we slide it right in there, flip it over, and begin to let this drape down a little bit. You're stretching the sides as you go. Then we flip it over, stretch this up, and then seal this edge real good. Then we just begin to pat it nice and round and smooth. We definitely want to make sure that's sealed up. If not, what happens is as this dumpling begins to cook, that peach will just work its way right out of a split or opening. You don't want that for sure. With our water boiling, we just want to go ahead and transfer these right into our pot. Now, I don't like to do more than, I don't know, let's say 5 or 6, depending on the size of your pot. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want these guys touching one another a lot. And what I do is, as I put them in, they will stick to the bottom of the pot. So you definitely want to sort of roll them around just a little bit so they're not sticking to that pot as you're putting these guys in here. I've got room for 5. I'm going to go ahead and put all 5 in here. They'll get a little misshapen sitting on this little tray, so just to be sure and adjust them as needed here. Now, because I do not want them to stick to the bottom, I will check these every couple of minutes, but they go for about 20 to 30 minutes is about the amount of time they'll take. We want that to be just fork tender all the way through into that peach. I usually use just a little bit of a sharp knife and just poke it so that I don't rip the dough a whole lot. With those boiling, I'm now going to start working on our toppings. And what we want to do is we want to brown some breadcrumbs. As I mentioned before, I just took some of my butter and I tossed it in this pan. It's melted just sitting outside. But I'm going to put in about a cup or a cup and a half or so of plain breadcrumbs. Now, I'm not measuring this exact. It's not that important. Let's go ahead and get this on the grill. We're going to take our breadcrumbs. We're just going to set it right on here. And I'm going to keep this handle out because it's a rubber handle. It's not a wooden or metal handle. This is really simple. We're just going to mix this up, and yes, we're getting a little bit of that butter mixed in with the breadcrumbs. That's what we want. I might just take our butter and just slide it right up here. Let it warm up a little quicker. Now this is how our peaches are beginning to look. You can see they've formed up real nice. There's no slits in them. These are going to be real good. They're floating. A lot of people say when they float they're done, but I say when they're tender they're done. I like to have these a very different consistency. I want them to be so soft it's almost, you could eat it with a spoon if you wanted. So we are getting close to the good stuff coming out. I'm going to let that finish boiling for just a little while longer. I've got my fork and knife here. I've got my sugar. Melted butter is going along with the breadcrumbs. Probably be another 5 or 10 minutes. I'll let that finish up. We're going to bring one of these out. I'll cut it up, show you how we serve it. It is delicious. All right, let's show you what we want to do here. Just check this out. We're going to just reach in here and grab one of these guys. Pull it up above the steam here for a second. And then we're just going to push our knife in. And that is feeling good. It's going in almost with no effort, maybe 2 more minutes. Butter's looking pretty good here. Need to get this guy mixed up a bit. I'm going to turn that heat up just a tad. Let's go ahead and start working on getting these guys right on out of here. Now, I like to hold these for just a second, let some of that water drain off of there.
Over here. Yeah, right here. Hey, do me a favor. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, subscribe to the channel and click on that little bell notification so you get notified of new videos. Thanks.
So with the dumplings done, I went ahead and just moved this over to the burner. This will speed this up a little bit. I can get a little bit more even heat on it. Should have started them a bit sooner in the grill. That is looking good. Turn that off. All right. Now it is time for the good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and put our fork in here, and I like to cut it right down the center because when you do, that pit usually just comes right out of there. Look how tender that is. Clean, exactly the way you want to see it come out. All right, as I start cutting this up, I'll show you how we put a little bit of that butter, sugar, and also those breadcrumbs on it. This is just, by the way, this is the reason why getting an even sized dough around it is kind of important. I just like to give these guys a cut up. Now they're going to feel fairly, let's say doughy or gooey. That's exactly the way they need to be, and that'll all change here in a minute when we add some of these toppings to it. Next thing we're going to do, just sprinkle on a little bit of sugar. Maybe a half a teaspoon or so. Normally I just use a spoon to do this, but I forgot to bring one out, so this is our melted butter. We're just going to drizzle a little bit of this across the top of these guys. Now it seems weird, butter and peaches, right? I'm telling you, it is something special. And now we're just going to go in with some of these toasted breadcrumbs. I like to sprinkle them on a little bit thick. Well, there we have it. This is peach dumplings. Now the funny thing is, I have these and I automatically think of, my aunt who lived in Illinois by my grandma making these. Hey, Aunt Marion. I think about that because that was part of what made this so special. We'd go there on summer vacation and they would always cook this at one night for the family meal, and my cousins would all be there, and our parents, our aunt and uncle, and my grandparents. But the reality is I probably had it way more often at home in either New Jersey or Texas, where my mom made these things as I was growing up. But this is definitely something that it's just a childhood memory for me. So, bon appetit. Man, that is good. You know, the peach is soft. Now, it's kind of like the texture of a peach in a peach cobbler, but then you get that chewy dumpling on the outside. And then right as you get that, all that, you get this nice toasty, dry crunch from the breadcrumbs, the sweetness from the peach. Oh, it's just absolutely phenomenal. I hope you guys give this a try. If you do, please, please, please put a comment down below. Let me know if you've tried this, if you like them, and if you've ever heard of them before and you know where these things originated. I can't tell if it's a southern US thing or a Bohemian thing, but I know it as Bohemian peach dumplings. Bye, y'all. Safe and happy grilling. Nobody grills dumplings, so we boil them. Bye, y'all.